Intersection Magazine Podcast.
Welcome to Intersection Magazine Podcast. My guest today is Youseff Ntwali. Youseff is from Rwanda. He has been in the business for a very long time. He's in the tech and innovation space. He's also an amazing podcaster. So for those of you who want to get some good content and technology and innovation and talk about interesting people that are in leadership positions in Rwanda, I encourage you to listen to his podcast, to watch his podcast. It's called What I'm Building. So today we're going to be talking about some of his projects and what he's working on right now, as well as pick his mind in terms of podcast building and other ideas such as employment and the podcast and the platform he's built. That's about hiring, and I'll compare it to some of the products I've used. So strap in. Once again, thank you for listening. Thank you for subscribing, and we look forward to creating more content that you'll find useful. So Youseff, thank you so much for agreeing to be a part of this podcast. And it's been quite a while of us trying to make this happen. So as a start, give us a rough idea who Youseff is, what are you building, and tell us a little bit about your podcast, and then we'll dive into details about each of those aspects.
Sure thing. Thanks a lot for having me, Nicholas. Pleasure to be here. And yeah, as you mentioned, we've been trying to do this for a while now, but I'm glad we finally did. So I'm a Rwandan entrepreneur, usually based in Kigali, and I'm in the tech space. I've been in the tech space for the last 8 years, essentially building a startup called Bag. We're an HR tech platform that essentially helps employers source, assess, hire, and onboard talent on the African continent. And also by doing that, we're able to do a lot of things on the job seeker side. So we're able to expose job seekers to opportunities. We're able to help them gain work experience, and we're able to help them, build up their careers. So far we have about close to 30,000 users, top candidates on our platform. We have about 250 companies who are using us, and we also collaborate with various stakeholders, government agencies, nonprofit organization, and so on. I'm also a podcaster. So I run a podcast on YouTube called What I'm Building. And essentially I started a podcast because over the years that I've been in the tech ecosystem, I've been meeting a lot of interesting people everywhere I go, everywhere I travel to. And I've always thought it would be interesting whenever I meet these people and I have good conversation to record these conversations and share them with the world. So decided to get into podcasting professionally about 1.5 years ago. And so far, we've recorded more than 40 episodes with entrepreneurs, policymakers, people in the public sector, CEOs of large enterprises, startup founders from all over the continent. And I'm just having fun with it. It's a pretty cool thing to do.
Let's go back to maybe about 6-7 years, between March and September 2018, 2019, I read about an escape room. What's that?
Escape room. So in about around 2018, a few collaborators, so a couple of people approached me they wanted to set up an escape room. So an escape room is essentially, it's an entertainment activity, I would say, where basically a group of people are locked up in a room for about 60 minutes, give or take. And the goal is to solve puzzles and riddles. And then you have to find a key to get out. So you're locked up in the room, and you have to collaborate as a team to be able to get out. And they wanted to launch something like that. And so they basically approached me to kind of help as a co-founder, help set up the business and run it. That was a really fun business that we ran. We ran it for about close to 1.5 years, maybe 2 years, give or take. And we launched it. It was the first escape room in Kigali. Kigali hadn't seen such an activity. We used to host a lot of corporate teams who wanted to do that as a team building activity, or just friends who wanted to do something fun on a weekend or on an evening in Kigali. So that was a really fun business that we ran. And then COVID hit, so we couldn't do any activity that involved people touching each other.
Okay. Then also I read something about your your work facilitating learning labs for a certain AMI. What's AMI net? What's a network, and what does this facilitation involve?
Yeah, so AMI is the African Management Institute. So I worked with them. They're basically an training organization for enterprises, but also for businesses all over the continent. They operate in a couple of markets. So they came in Rwanda to set up AMI in Rwanda and work with the MasterCard Foundation. And essentially they needed somebody who can run training programs for some of their entrepreneurs. So they wanted somebody who's already an entrepreneur themselves to run some of these programs. So they called me on and I joined their team there for about 1 year and a couple of months where I was helping them train some entrepreneurs in how to grow their businesses, how to maximize sales, how to do proper bookkeeping, how to, identify how to best hire, how to manage people. Also helped with some curriculum design, helped with some content as well. So designing some of the training curriculums as well, because that's been one of my background has been in building curriculums for couple of enterprises. So I think you can see that in my professional career. I've been working a lot with a few organizations doing that.
And then I also noticed that, as you mentioned, there's career development. I also see lots of management involved in this work that you've been doing. Then I noticed also you talked about, at least in your profile, there's some mention of an accelerator program called Loop. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Sure thing. So Loop Accelerator, my co-founder and I, we basically got some funding a couple of years ago to run an accelerator.
Okay.
So there was an organization that wanted to start an accelerator for education startups. So anyone who's building something in the education space, they wanted to build an accelerator because, again, I don't know if you know about this, but a lot of startups in the education space don't necessarily access a lot of funding because education is not considered sexy for investment because it has a lot of challenges on the African continent. So we wanted to run an accelerator because we're doing a lot of work in education and we knew that there was a lot of startups who were doing great work. So we basically launched an accelerator, which was a 3-month accelerator where, tried to accelerate the growth of a couple of startups, about 10 to 15 startups in Rwanda who were working on education problems. And we incubated them for 3 months and they could access some funding. We could connect them to investors, but also really help them to understand some of the challenges they have and also figure out how can we help them grow in one way or the other. So that was an accelerator that we ran, which was really cool. Which was an amazing experience. Being an entrepreneur myself, running an accelerator was actually very valuable because, I'm able to help some of the entrepreneurs with things that I also want, I would wish an accelerator would help them with. So we ran that and it was a fun project that we did.
Okay.
I wish I could do that again in the future, actually.
And then this led to some leadership positions in the overall ecosystem, I suppose. What were some of your takeaways, or in a sense, what did this involve to begin with? And then what were your takeaways in terms of what gaps did you recognize, or what were the benefits of being at the helm and trying to help the startups in Rwanda?
So I think some of the key takeaways is that every ecosystem has its own challenges, right? I think that's one of the things that I've learned. Over the years, I interact a lot with a lot of ecosystem builders, investors, entrepreneurs in different ecosystems. Some developed, some that are not developed. And, what you see is that every ecosystem has its own challenges because of just the nature of the market that the entrepreneurs are working in. But also at the same time, you realize that there's a couple of elements that cut across any of those ecosystems, right? Access to funding is a really big issue. And I think when we say access to funding, right, sometimes we get tired of throwing around that, that statement. And people are like, yeah, everybody just keeps saying that there's lack of access to funding. But we really have to dig deep and I'm trying to understand what do we exactly mean by lack of access to funding. If you look at the most developed, ecosystem in the world, you realize that there's a very strong, let's say, private sector. There is a very strong corporate culture, but also there's a lot more, let's say, wealthy individuals in any of these markets. And if you look at how any of this most successful ecosystem have grown, Silicon Valley, London, or anywhere in Europe that is more developed in the tech ecosystem, you realize that in these markets, when you're getting started, when you're a young entrepreneur trying to build a company, you have at least a good number of people who have built companies before and they've been able to exit, right? They've exited, either they've sold their company to a larger enterprise, they've, went public with their company to IPO or and so on. And what that creates is that now it creates this new, I would call it, ecosystem of entrepreneurs who've exited, who have a little bit more cash, who have done the entrepreneur, journey, who have gone through that journey. So they understand what it takes to actually build a company. And these kind of people are perfect for you to speak to when you're getting started with your business, because you're able to find somebody who has, if you're trying to build a startup in the fintech space, you're able to find somebody who has sold one of their early businesses to Visa, to MasterCard, or whatever that is, or to a bank. So they're able to tell you some of the things that they had to do to build a successful business to be able to exit. And if they still have a little bit of money, they're able to also give you some of that seed money, because they understand what it takes to build a company. And when you look back to Africa, this is something that we're lacking, right? I always say that when you're building a company, it's very hard for you to find mentors. It's very hard for you to find somebody who has done something similar, something in that same space, who has been successful. And by successful, I mean sold their business, or has a business that generates millions of dollars, or has gone IPO, right? And if you don't have that, then you're getting started in your journey. Nobody's going to believe in you to begin with. Any of the wealthy individuals that you see around Kampala or Kigali or Nairobi, maybe Nairobi is a lot more advanced in that area, because I've seen a couple of more successful ventures in the tech space. But in other markets, some of the wealthy individuals that are there, who could potentially be these angel investors to give you that first funding for you to kick off your idea, have made money from traditional businesses, real estate, culture, and so on. And they see this tech thing as very risky. They're like, yeah, but nobody has been successful in this. Like, what do you mean? Like, you're going to build this and it's going to be successful. So they don't really believe in it, even though they might have the money, but they just have never seen somebody being successful in that area. So then it becomes very challenging for you to raise money, to raise that first initial investment. So then you have to turn your business or business proposal to banks. You have to turn your business proposal to VCs who are outside of the continent. But then again, they don't understand the continent, and it becomes very challenging. So what we mean by lack of access to funding, this is really what we mean. It's hard to find those first couple of people who are going to believe in your idea enough to give you that first seed funding for you to kick off. Again, this is only applicable if, you are not coming from a wealthy background. You haven't been working in an area where you have some savings. Your parents don't have money to bankroll your dreams, and you're just an entrepreneur trying to get started with your idea. Right? It's going to be very challenging to find that. And working with entrepreneurs and being an entrepreneur myself, right?
Okay. It seemed like, in terms of what you're doing right now for people that are looking for jobs, everything that I've noticed you were doing from the beginning, with setting up the escape room, to helping teach entrepreneurs certain business skills, and then your management work, all of this seems to have led you to where you are right now in terms of the platform that you've created. Tell us a little bit more about that platform.
And actually, I would say that building the platform has led me to build all those other things. Okay. Right. And so about the platform, so I think we have to go back to the problem, right? The problem that me and my team believe in and are trying to tackle. So essentially what we've observed is that there is a huge problem of youth unemployment on the African continent, but also I would say all over the world, right? But let's look at the African continent. And I do believe that if you were to summarize and simplify a way to approach solving this problem, you can basically look at it in two ways. So how do you solve youth unemployment? Number one, you create more opportunities for people to get jobs, right? And to get jobs or make money, right? So here we can talk a lot more. If you want to dig deeper, you can talk about creating opportunities for young people to make money. So the likes of platforms like Uber, Safe, Boda, and so on, which, create an opportunity for anyone to sign up and start making money, right? That is one way to beat youth unemployment, right? Number two, you basically encourage more people to build businesses. By encouraging, I mean you create systems and incentives, and you create policies that actually make it easy to start a business and even run one and make it successful. So investment policies, you make it easy for people to invest in the country, and so on and so forth. Another angle is you provide people with the skills they need to become attractive on the job market, so they can land opportunities either on the continent or even outside of the continent, right? But again, there's also another reality that there's not going to be enough jobs that the African continent is producing for the growing number of young people that are graduating or entering the job market on a yearly basis, right? So one specific angle that we are passionate about is in the skills or workforce development space. So not in creating more jobs, not in not in empowering entrepreneurship, but mostly looking at the skills development. And we also go another layer down on that aspect, and we focus on work experience. So we strongly believe that one of the other factors that contributes to people not getting jobs is the fact that they don't have the skills that employers are looking for. And one of the best ways to get skills that employers are looking for is to actually work with employers. So you have to know what employers are. To know what employers are looking for, you have to literally sit down with them and they will tell you, these are the things that I'm looking for. All right. And a practical way to do that is to provide work experience opportunities for people. So this could be internships, apprenticeships, any opportunities for young people to actually go in and practice the theoretical learning that they've been getting from school with exactly what the job market is looking for, and them getting their hands dirty, if you could call it that. So if we stick to, let's say, okay, great, more young people need to get internships so they can gain the skills that employers are looking for. So the employers can stop saying everyone who graduates does not have the skills we look for. They have a lot of theory and we have to teach them the practical, experience that we're looking for. So the problem with that is that even if you were to make it a law and say it's mandatory that every company has to provide internships to everyone, the problem that you're going to run into is that majority of companies are not going to be able to have the facilities to accommodate all these people to get into their organization. We've done a lot of interviews with some of the largest employers in the region, and you realize that all of them tell you that we can only take on up to 50 interns on a yearly basis. More than that, it becomes very time consuming and it requires a lot of resources for us to manage more than 50 interns on a yearly basis. Let's say, for example, that's a bank saying that. How many young people are actually graduating from with a banking degree who need that practical experience to be able to be attractive for employers? The numbers do not even make any sense, right? You would find 5,000, 10,000 are graduating, but on the opportunities for them to gain experience is about 1,000, 2,000, right? And that's a big problem, right? These people are going to graduate, go for a job interview, and the first question they're going to ask them is, how many years of experience do you have? And they're asking you how many years of experience you have when you've been studying your whole life. Make it make sense. So we basically look at that problem, right, on the job seeker side, and we understand it, and we say, okay, great, we understand this. Interesting. Let's look at the employers. Employers are looking for people who have experience. But why do they look for people who have experience? That's a question you have to ask yourself. It's because somebody who has experience is somebody who has done it before. If somebody has done something before, it means that when I hire them, they won't take so much time for me to train them, for them to become productive on the job. There's a research that was done, and it showed that when you hire a new person with no prior training about what you do, they take anywhere between 6 to 8 months for them to become fully productive on the job. And during this period, they're only giving you about 25 to 30% productivity. This means you're paying them 100% salary, whatever you agreed on, but they're only giving you 30% of their productivity for those months because they're getting acquainted with the company or the sector that you work in, the kind of challenges that are there, and they're getting to understand better. So which leads to a lot of companies, when you meet a lot of companies, they always tell you, we don't like or we don't prefer to hire entry-level positions because it just doesn't make any sense. It's too expensive for us whenever we do this. So we prefer hiring mid-level senior managers because then we don't have to do much training. They will get into the job and they will get started to work. This leaves a huge vacuum of these young people are graduating. Companies don't want to take them because they feel like they're too risky and too expensive. Actually, that's the right word. So then when you look at that problem, then you say, okay, great. So what can we do to actually contribute to solving this problem? So this is where BAG comes in. So essentially what BAG is trying to do is we are partnering with these employers and saying, look, we want to figure out a way that we can save you a lot of cost and time when it comes to attracting some of the best talent so that you don't see it as an expensive endeavor, but you actually see it as a great investment. So what do we do with them? So we partner with these companies to understand what does a role looks like in your company. What does somebody do on a day-to-day basis at this specific company? It could be, I don't know, anywhere from a manufacturing company or a bank. What does a customer service person do on a day-to-day basis? What kind of challenges do they encounter? Okay, great. Customer service person, they're in charge of communicating with our customers, making sure that they record the customer data, they're able to give them a good service. so on and so forth. Varies for a company to company. We use that information and we turn that into what we call job simulations.
Oh, nice.
Right? And then our goal with these job simulations is to say, we can show any candidate who's interested in potentially working in a specific role, in a specific industry, what it's like to work at any of these companies. And they can take these content as if they're an employee there. So they would go in and try to complete a report with a lot of the data that they're having. They would go in and try to design a strategy for a company. They would go in and try and resolve an issue, right? As if they're stepping in the shoes of that employee in that job. And the goal here is for a couple of things. Number one, on the job seeker side, it helps them understand what employers are looking for in a much better way, instead of just looking at a job description and say, okay, this company wants me to do X, Y, Z. But it's like, no, they've actually told me to do those things and I did them. And now when I do them, I realize that either I don't have the skill sets that they're looking for. So I now see, it's almost like a slap in the face. Now I see what I need to work on. But also number two, this aligns, or this is more interesting for me because I kind of like the work that they do. So I can use that information to make better career development decisions for myself. And also the third thing that it helps you with at a deeper level is that it helps this candidate enter that company's talent pool right away. Right? Because as they're working on these specific tasks, the company is receiving all their work and their profile. So whenever this company wants to hire, instead of them having to post on a job portal, they would have to pick people who've completed some of their work, who actually understand these roles better. And this is a good segue into what is the benefit for the company, is that it helps them build a talent pipeline, right? Of talent who are actually ready for their specific position. Because if somebody has taken the time to complete a simulation from your company, they really are interested. And even when you bring them for an interview, you're going to have a much better conversation with them, because they're going to be like, when you ask them, why did you apply for this position? They're going to be like, I've actually completed some tasks and I really like the kind of work you guys do. I feel like I could be a great asset for your company. So that's a much better interview than somebody saying, I applied because I need a job, right? Which is the majority of how people answer these jobs. And also one thing that we're trying to do is that now we can democratize access to work experience. Because right now, in majority of the parts of the world, for you to get that first opportunity, that first internship, you need to either be well connected, have parents who know somebody in that job, or your parents themselves, they find you that job. You need to be a genius in what you do. So if you're an amazing software engineer, I always believe that you will always get a job. Somebody will find you. It's very easy to find a Messi in any field. You're always going to be found at some point, right? It's easy to find a Rihanna of music, but in a particular sector. So if you're talented, it's going to be easier for you to, attract opportunities. And the third thing is that if you didn't get to a top university or top school, so these three things contribute in you either getting an opportunity quicker or you delaying to get opportunities. So we're trying to say, if we create these job simulations from various different employers, we're able to level the playing field. So that it doesn't matter who you know. It doesn't matter where you went to school. If you can complete these job simulations in the most, let's say, talented way, I would say, then you can enter a company talent without having to have any of those three barriers that I just mentioned. So that's essentially what we do. And then we do have other features on our platform that allows companies to do job posting in a much more efficient way, use AI to shortlist candidates. So it saves them a lot of time when it comes to job posts, but also do employee onboarding as well, where they're able to digitize all the material they have and do much more effective onboarding plans for their employees. So that's essentially what we believe in. That is our philosophy of the particular problem we're passionate about solving. And yeah, that's what we do at BAG.
Outstanding. Okay. I remember about maybe a year and a half ago, I was experimenting with this whole employment and application process. Yeah. So I approached two particular groups. I won't mention their names, but one of them said, okay, give us the equivalent of maybe $80. We'll send out your request for positions to a set number of people, but they did not give me access to their emails or their phone numbers.
Okay.
Now, the second one I used was a free platform. You probably already know it. And I got communication through the standard DM method that they use for communication. So then I was able to establish who was a suitable candidate and everything else. But I mainly did this because I wanted to compare products and see what was out there. So far in terms of what you've presented, this is so compelling. But I suppose what I'm curious about is the amount of work that goes into you creating this simulation. How do you deal with that? How do you, for example, do you have categories and say, okay, these are IT jobs and these are probably the important things that would entail an IT job? Or do you go to the companies themselves and say, what are you guys looking for? Or do you have some background that you're using to develop this knowledge that was going to go into the simulation product?
Yeah, so I strongly believe that when it comes to solving the unemployment issue, you have to be demand driven rather than supply driven. So what does supply and demand look like on the job market? So demand is the employers and supply is the job seekers. You have to focus on demand. You have to focus on where the jobs are. You have to focus on what the employers are looking for. And then you can turn back to the supply, which is the job seekers, and then you can let them know what is available on the market. We see too many companies, too many programs on the market starting with, we are going to train job seekers, and then we're going to try and find them opportunities. I feel like that is the wrong way to do it, because it's almost like you're trying to impose particular profiles of candidates to employers, and employers do not need them, right? You have to start with sitting down with employers and saying, what are you looking for? What is the biggest challenge? Where are the opportunities? Which jobs do you have for job seekers? Then we can go and build you a pipeline of those specific people. Because then we know that each one of these people is going to be placed into a job, right? So when it comes to this, we are very much demand driven.
Okay.
We go first to the companies and we go and sit down with the companies and understand what are their critical roles? What are the roles that they're struggling to identify talent for? What are the roles that they even want to stop investing into try and find talent for? And where can we bring this new model of sourcing talent to be able to help them save those costs and that amount of time that they're spending in that space? So we're very much demand driven. We sit down with employers first. We understand where the jobs, we map out where the jobs are, and then we go into creating all the content. So we are learning designers. So my background is in learning design. So we are learning designers on our team, and we do focus on also working with subject matter experts, so people who've worked in the sector for a while to try and understand what are the skill sets that are needed. But also at the same time, we do believe that companies know what they want more than anybody can ever pretend to know. So if you sit down with an HR manager or let's say a department head, and they tell you this is the profile of a product manager I'm looking for, they will tell you a lot more information than you can ever think, this is what a product manager needs to have, right? But then that line manager is going to be like, if you find me a person like this, I will hire them right now, right? So who would you rather listen to? Is it your own guts on what a product manager needs to have, or what literally the employer is telling you? Find me this person, this specific skill set who can do X, Y, Z. I will hire them on the spot and literally focus on profiling that. So a lot of interviews with employers to really go to the, to the what exactly makes a candidate attractive to you, right? Let's understand patterns in the past. Who has succeeded in a similar role? Who was the best talent that you've ever had? Who was in this role? What did they have? Can we try to understand some of these behaviors, some of these soft skills, some of these hard skills, and try to create content that helps us identify that kind of person?
Probably be unfair for me to let you go without trying to tap into your podcast talent.
Sure.
It would be foolhardy of me to let you go without assessing your podcasting talent. One of the things that was recommended for those of us such as myself that have a smaller audience was you have to find partners that are, or at least try to host people that have larger audiences so that you can build your own. But I guess also in terms of learning, I noticed that your platform, for example, has covered quite a lot of interesting topics, but also in terms of your focus on video content. We had a conversation before that the listeners might be interested in. What are some of the advantages you found in video content as opposed to what I do, which is mainly audio content?
Yeah, so I'm a big fan of video content because for the, as I mentioned to you earlier, the first biggest advantage about video content is that you're hitting two birds with one stone, right? You are covering video and you're covering audio as well at the same time. And that helps you to be able to distribute your content across various platforms, right? Which is probably one of the best things you can ever do. Because again, success of a podcast is distribution, right? How viral it could go, how big it could grow, how many channels it could go to. That's how you start monetizing and you can actually grow it. So I strongly believe that that is one of the biggest advantages of doing video is that you're able to cover video and audio at the same time. And also number two, in this day and age where a lot more people are using TikTok, Instagram Reels, people spend hours, hundreds of hours on platforms like TikTok, right? Just scrolling. And Instagram Reels is the same thing. And then so what I always recommend people is that if you really want to go viral, you want to use one of these platforms. So, and the best way to do that is through video content. But also, it's just maybe a bias that I have. But as I mentioned to you, I sit down and I watch 3-hour, 4-hour podcasts. As long as I'm interested in the topic and I'm interested in the host, So I have a couple of, podcasters that I really follow, and I can sit down and watch them for 3-4 hours. Like for me, I love watching more than I love listening. The only time I listen is when I'm on the plane and I have a couple of hours. That's when I'm just download a couple of podcasts and I'm just listening to podcasts. But whenever I have time, I just sit down and I watch. The same way that people would watch a movie, I sit down and I watch that. Because I mean, there's just like another thing that you see in people's faces whenever they're communicating, right? You're able to see the passion, you're able to see the emotions that they have, and that, attracts you more to the topic or to the person to follow them even further. So that's really what I believe that the advantages of video content is. It's easier to go viral on any of these platforms and grow your podcast significantly. People get to know who you are. People get to associate, the podcast with your face, and that opens up a lot of opportunities where people would want you to host other things. People would want you to do advertisement, and you can monetize in a lot of ways as a creator once you do that. So I think that's really what my thought process is around video podcasting.
Okay, before we leave, tell us a little bit more about the podcast itself. What's the podcast called? So guys can subscribe to it. And then, of course, as well about your platform that you've created to help employers and employees.
Sure. So my podcast is called What I'm Building. So what I'm building, is building podcast. You can find it on YouTube, and my podcast is all about. I try to keep it very vague because I believe that it's more of a passion project for me. So basically, I speak to anyone who's building something. Right? You could be an entrepreneur, you could be an innovator, you could be in the tech space or non-tech space. You could be a head of a department in a specific organization, trying to change the way that the organization does something particular. You could be a podcast, you could be a creator. As long as you're building something that is interesting, that contributes to taking the continent to greater heights, I would say, I want to talk to you. So I go around and I speak to people on the continent who I believe they are doing really cool stuff. And I try to understand who they are, what makes them who they are, why are they doing what they're doing, what are they building, how does that help the continent, and where are they going? So that's what I talk about. It's a long form podcast. So if you go on, you're going to see, we go anywhere between 1.5 hour to 2.5 hours, and who knows, we might do 3 or 4 hours as well, as long as the conversation is good. And I really enjoy it. We just started about a year ago. We have a lot of plans. We want to cover a lot of interesting people on the continent, even outside the continent. We definitely want to take it global. And you can find it on YouTube for now. We're going to be launching the audio version on streaming platforms very soon as well. And about BAG, so if you are looking for opportunities, looking to grow your career, if you are a student in university, graduate, or working in a job and you're looking to grow into another career, for example, you can go onto our platform. It's www.bag.work. Sign up, create an account, take some of our content, be part of our program, be part of our network. You can apply for opportunities that are open in any of the markets: Rwanda, Uganda, Kenya, and Nigeria for now. And then if you are an employer, if you are running a company, it could be a small startup that just got started, it could be a small and medium enterprise, or you could be a large enterprise looking to digitize the way that you do hiring, onboarding, assessment. You're able to use our software by, again, going to our platform, www.bag.work, create an account. There's a freemium version. You can create an account as a company, get started, and give us your feedback. Let us know how the platform is and if it's helpful in your operations.
Excellent. Thank you so much for your time. Hopefully we can get to see you again, have more conversations. Your Twitter handle, please, or your LinkedIn handle?
Yes, and thank you so much for having me, Nicholas. Amazing work that you're doing on the continent. I always love speaking to other creators and doing collabs on different podcasts. So my Twitter handle is Youseff Ntwali. So that's YUS.
Great. Once again, guys, thank you for listening. Thank you for subscribing. I hope you've enjoyed this podcast as much as I have myself. And thank you, Youseff, for your time, taking your precious time to be with us. Take care.
All right. Thank you, man. Cheers.
Intersection Magazine Podcast.